Welcome everyone. My name is Betsheba Ratemo. I work for Pelam Kenya. I'm a program officer, and today we are here to learn about different agroecological practices at GBIA. As you know, during our virtual talk show, we promise that we're going to deliver you a virtual tour of different agroecological practices. You're going to learn about soil health. You're going to learn about how to make a plant to be productive. So that's from the soil up to maturity. So here in this farm, you're going to learn about agroforestry, you're going to learn about different planting calendars, you're going to learn about vermiculture, production of livestock like poultry, rabbits. So please tune in and watch, and be sure that in terms of organic farming, you can make money. There's profit in organic farming. And as we watch, please continue to learn, take notes. In case you have any questions, please you just put on the comments. Thank you.
My name is Francis Nsanga, and I'm the project manager for the Knowledge Hub for Organic Agriculture in Eastern Africa. The Knowledge Hub for Eastern Africa is part of the Continental Knowledge Center for Organic Agriculture in Africa. And in Kenya, we have the country implementing partner called Pelam Kenya that works with partners including 2 centers of excellency. And one of those centers of excellency is Grow Biointensive Agriculture Center of Kenya, GBIAC, here in Thika. We are here at Thika right now, and I would love to probably mention a few things about why a farmer, why a consumer should think of agroecology, why should a consumer think about organic agriculture. In our world, we know that many things have changed, including the way we grow food, and many people have taken on very dangerous approaches, for lack of another word. And we are here to promote. This center promotes agroecology, agroecological practices that are sustainable, practices that promote biodiversity, and practices that produce health food for our consumption. We all know that the chemicals that some farmers use to grow their crops are very dangerous for our health, but also for the health of the soil, the health of the biodiversity, including organisms, animals, and everything else that lives. And so we want to encourage farmers especially, and also consumers, to know that it's important to eat health food, organic food, that is produced using sustainable methods. And so I would call on the farmers especially to come to this center, GBIAC, here in Thika, to learn about the methods and approaches they can use to produce health food, to produce sustainably, to promote biodiversity, and to be able to live for generations, but also live a healthy planet. Because we are here and we are leaving this planet for others. How are we leaving the planet? Do we want to get extinct? The answer is no. And so for us to be able to live and hand over the planet sustainably is to use approaches that are sustainable, like agroecology practices that we are promoting at GBIAC in Thika. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana.
Welcome to the Grow Biointensive Agriculture Center of Kenya demonstration gardens. We are in Kiambu, and this is in Thika sub-county. And we are demonstrating the agroecological practices and the wider agroecological practices. But the form that we promote here is called the Grow Biointensive Agriculture, which is just part of the larger agroecological practices. And the Grow Biointensive techniques entails 8 components. And one of the components is deep digging, where you dig deep, and then so that the roots will be able to penetrate and allow water to penetrate, and the roots to avoid networking down there. And the second principle is composting, where you use the Grow Biointensive compost, the 60% carbon composts, so that will allow farmers to harvest and make compost out of the residues that they produce. The other principle is the intensive planting, which is also known as biointensive planting, where you grow your crops close to each other after the soils have been fertilized very well and the soil is very well made, and so that will allow for a farmer to grow their crops close to each other. The other component, that is component number 4, is companion planting. Companion planting means that you're planting crops that have some kind of relationship. Maize and beans is a companion. Kale, sukuma wiki, and onions are companions. So they are crops that will benefit each other in one way or another. The fourth principle is the fifth principle is the carbon cropping or carbon farming, where you're growing crops that you'll harvest a lot of food, but at the same time, after harvesting, you remain with a lot of trash that you'll either make compost, take it back into the soil, or feed your livestock, get manure, and take manure back into the soil. That is harvesting carbon that is in the air, take it in the crop, and then decompose the crop and take it back into the soil. The sixth principle is the principle of calorie farming, where you are growing what we call the special root crops. Special root crops are crops like sweet potatoes that are space efficient, that are water efficient, and are fertilizer efficient. But that means that you are using that a small portion of land for you to produce sufficient food that will give you a lot of calories. Not crops like wheat, where you grow a lot of, you need a lot of space to grow just a little wheat that will make 2 or 4, loaves of bread. So you're making just a small area, you produce a lot of food, like sweet potato, and you get sufficient calories for yourself and for your family. The seventh principle is the principle of open pollinated seeds. That's where you're using seeds that regenerate, seeds that will be grown year in, year out, season in, season out. And those are the heirloom varieties, the indigenous varieties, and OPVs. And principle number 8 is not a practice, but it says that you combine all the 7 principles together so that you make a whole system, and that's a sustainable way of farming. So we say if you follow all these principles and if you do them very well, you'll be able to cut the usage of water up to 88%. And you'll be able to also avoid purchase of fertilizers like organic fertilizers or any other kind of fertilizers outside your farm up to 100%. And you cut the energy. After you have established your farm, you'll be able to cut the energy up to 99%. So you don't need to apply a lot of energy after you have established the farm. This global intensive results to 2 to 6 or 8% more times food production as compared to conventional farming. And also, you need to do this type of farming because it will help you to grow your soil up to 60 times faster than in nature. And finally, you don't need a big space of land. You need just a small portion of land for you to grow your food sustainably and a lot of food in that small area. So follow global intensive, do global intensive, and global intensive. When you talk of agroecology and talk about soil growing and soil building, we must give alternatives to the farmers. And the alternatives that we give to the farmers is diverse. And one of the alternatives is vermicomposting or vermiculturing, where we culture worms, we rear them, and then the worms will be able to feast or break down the carbon materials, and then they make the compost that you're talking about. The compost that is made out of the worms is called vermicompost. And at the same time, these structures are slanting a little bit so that when you apply some water, because we must provide water to the worms, if the worms lack water, they will die. And if again they are submerged in water, again they will die. So you have to provide a very good environment for them to thrive, and so that they can be able to break down the materials that you provide unto them so that they can make the compost that we want. So these structures slant a little bit so that when you apply water, water will be drained into that container there, and that liquid that goes there is called vermiliquid or vermi-tea. So that now that becomes good for top dressing. That is, if you need to amend your soil, and now that vermicompost is good for building the soil for planting. So that's one alternative. Alternative number 2 is bokashi. Bokashi is a type of fertilizer that is made out of different materials. Bokashi is Japanese word that means fermented fertilizer. So you ferment fertilizer using yeast that's baking yeast and molasses in a solution of water. So that now you include other elements like rice husks, you include charcoal dust, rock dust, and livestock manure. You mix them together, you turn them to every day after applying the solution of yeast, baking yeast and molasses, and that solution of water. You apply that and then keep on turning every day for 14 days, and then it will be ready for use. And it has to be used after the 14th day. It has to be used within 3 months' time, so that you apply it in the soil. And the essence of bokashi is to add in microorganisms in the soil so that they help in digesting carbon, that is, or carbonaceous materials that are there in the soil. The other alternative is compost. Compost is the best way of fertilizing our soils, for building our soils. And here we make what we call cold compost. Cold compost is made out of at least 90% of carbon materials and 10% of nitrogenous materials. So you're applying a lot of carbonaceous materials and very little of nitrogenous materials. We say 90% mature materials and 10% immature materials. Mature materials are materials that have flowered or you have harvested, and immature materials are materials that have not flowered. So they are succulent. They contain a lot of nitrogen. The mature materials contains a lot of carbon, and so that what we need in our soils is carbon and not a lot of nitrogen, so that you balance the CN ratio. CN means carbon nitrogen ratio. The compost that we make here has 60%, 60 parts of carbon and only 1 part of nitrogen. 60% carbon, 1% of nitrogen. So that's the alternative that we are giving out, the alternatives that we give to the farmers. We also give other alternatives like green manuring, which is not very, very sustainable, but if a farmer feels that they want to do it, they can do it. They can still grow green manure crops like lab, incorporate it into the soil, and they grow what they want. So those are some of the alternatives that we provide to the farmers. Here we are demonstrating a project on the black soldier flies. It is a project that helps us to feed our poultry by producing the larva that is an alternative to protein that we purchase from the shops, like fish meal or bone meal. So instead of purchasing fish meal and bone meal, which is very expensive, we rear black soldier flies that will give us larvae that will feed to our chicken. And so we feed black soldier flies with the materials or the remains from the kitchen or even farmyard manure, and then they multiply, they lay eggs, the eggs will convert into larvae, and then we harvest the larvae, and then we remain with a little that will convert into pupa, and then from pupa to adult, and then the adult will lay eggs, and that's so that cycle continues like that. And this is pure protein for our chicken and other livestock. Welcome to our small livestock section, where we rear small livestock like indigenous poultry. We have rabbits here, and we have dairy goats. But here we are showing and teaching farmers on how to rear rabbits. And the most important thing here is to collect or harvest urine, where we have gutters here that the urine, after urinating like here, the urine will come and you collect it here, and then we'll sift it and put it in containers, and then let it ferment for several weeks, and then it will be ready to be used in the gardens, so that we apply it in our crops in the soil, so that there be more of microorganisms that help to digest carbon and having fertilizer ready for use by the plants. And the other thing that we harvest here is a rabbit manure that we put in our compost. We don't use rabbit manure directly in our garden. So we apply it just a little in the compost, and then that compost becomes very rich in nitrogen. So it's very simple. We have cages, different breeds of rabbits, and they multiply like that. We also sell and make some income. This is where we propagate all our seedlings. We don't buy any seedlings from outside, and we also teach farmers how to propagate their seedlings. And in Grower Intensive, all the crops that are in the garden should be transplanted, including everything that you see has to be transplanted. Put them in the flats, and then you do pricking out, like here. You remove them from here to these are the flats here, and then when they are big enough, they're transplanted to the main planting fields. We are growing tomatoes here in this greenhouse, and we also teach farmers on how to grow tomatoes and other crops that are economically viable inside a greenhouse, like capsicums and other green leafy vegetables. But mostly tomatoes do well in a greenhouse. So inside here is just tomatoes, and they are economic viable in terms of giving us money and some good income. We do environmental conservation, and in this farm we are trying as much as possible to plant fruit trees and other trees, especially fruit trees, so that they give us food from the tree and also timber and firewood. But at the same time, we are creating nurseries within the communities and promoting fruit trees so that farmers can grow fruits for the diet, for the family, and also for environmental conservation. So here we have a diverse of different types of fruit trees and other trees like moringa. We have mangoes, we have passion fruits, dragon fruits, and other varieties of fruit trees. But at the same time, we also do herbs. So we have different types of herbs in this farm. We are creating a food forest here that is in the process right now. We have grown a lot of fruit trees and other crops that are on the ground. Some are on the area, and passion fruits that will be somewhere around here, and fruit trees, and so that they'll have the 7 layers of a food forest. And this is geared towards eventually, after maybe 4 or 5 years, we'll be making money here out of the fruits and out of the foods that we will be harvesting. So this is our food forest. We also teach farmers on how to have such kind of a food forest so that they have food through the year and also generate income out of the farm. This is azolla, an aquatic plant that grows in ponds that's very rich in protein. We are growing azolla in these fish ponds because we also have fish. We have tilapia here, and we have catfish on the other side. So fish will eat azolla, but at the same time we'll harvest this azolla and dry it, or even as green as it is, and we feed to our chicken. So there's chicken in that small house there. The chicken drops manure in this fish pond. It fertilizes the water. This water fertilizes this azolla. It becomes very rich in a nitrogen, and this, when converted, it becomes protein, and then we harvest it, either dry it and grind it, mix it with other feeds, and then we feed our chicken, or just feed our chicken raw, just the way it is. So this is very good for income generation, and people can adopt this because it's easy, just dropping just a little in water, and it grows and fills the fish pond. This is our Farmers Seed Learning Center, where we save all indigenous seeds. We collect seeds that are in the process of disappearing, and we visit the farmers, and we collect them, bring them here at the center. We plant them, we grow and multiply them, and then we save a little, and then some we take them back to the farmers, because we want to salvage the little seeds that are getting disappearing. We are saying that we want to save the lost crops of Africa, which are very, very important in our food systems, and especially agroecology. All these seeds that are here are open pollinated, they're heirloom varieties, and they're indigenous. So we want to have farmers to save their own seeds, indigenous seeds, and grow them, as opposed to hybrids, which don't grow nowadays because of the change of the climate. So these are very important to us, because we are making sure that we are growing them and multiplying them and bring them back here in our seed bank, and we still have more in the fridges and deep freezers so that they last longer. Yeah, and we also help farmers to create their own seed banks out there. We have several seed banks that we have created, and so farmers are happy that they are saving their own seeds.